Welcome back to Monday, the best night of the week. That's because it's time for this week's episode of RfRx, your prescription for coping. I'm Kara, I'll be your host, and I have with me today returning co-host Daniel. Daniel, how are you?
I'm great.
And who's that with you?
Oh, it's Grub. He's sitting on my shoulder. He's making sure I do a good job tonight. So.
Awesome. I am sure that he will be an excellent quality control person for us. Maybe he can be a producer next week.
Maybe. I'll have to ask him. He might require more apples. I don't know.
That's fair. That's fair. We'll have to figure out a proper payment system. But glad both of y'all are here. And glad everybody else is here joining us. For anybody that's new to the show, Recovering from Religion offers hope, healing, and support to those struggling with issues of doubt and non-belief. And RfRx is our weekly live stream show where we host guests who discuss topics that are relevant to folks in the RFR community. And as a reminder, RFR, or Recovering from Religion, is a nonprofit organization, and our shows are designed to generate conversation and engage our powers of reason. All of our guest speakers are presenting their own views, and people of any political or religious affiliation are welcome to participate in the show. This is a safe space for members of the LGBTQ+ community. So we ask that everyone please keep your comments civil, and if you disagree with someone in the chat, please do so respectfully. And if you have a question for our speaker this evening, please feel free to drop that in the chat, and we will ask as many of those as we have time for at the end. So with that, Daniel, would you care to do the honors of introducing our guest?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Taylor is fantastic. She is the creator behind Skeptical Heretic, where she shares reflections on religious deconstruction and life after leaving faith. Skeptical Heretic, of course, being her TikTok and YouTube channel. Drawing from her own experience, her work explores the emotional journey many people face when questioning deeply held beliefs and rebuilding meaning outside of religion. Oh, also, she has really cool guinea pig friends. Taylor, how you
That's
doing?
Important.
It's very important.
It is.
Yeah, that's why you're here. JK. How you doing?
Good. I'm excited to be here. I'm glad I was asked. I was super excited.
Oh man, well, we're excited that you said yes. I was excited to know that you were coming, and I can't wait to chat. And maybe if we're lucky, we'll see some guinea pigs later, maybe in the hangout. I don't know.
I could definitely bring one out, I think.
I mean, if we're good, maybe we can get to meet a guinea pig or two. That would be
fun. Exactly. Reward
Yes.
system there.
Okay, y'all, ask good questions in the chat. Maybe we'll get a guinea pig appearance out of it. But regardless, we're excited you're here and can't wait to chat. I have been watching your channel for a while and was catching up on some of your content earlier today and this past week, and it is so timely and relevant. I feel like all of your episodes on your show are talking about things that I've been thinking about or that I've been coming across. How do you stay so relevant and up to date on some of the things that I don't know, I would be pulling my hair out if I had to follow some of the content that you comment on your program?
Yeah. I think religion still impacts me so much every single day. So I feel like it's easy because it's so integrated into my life still when it comes to relationships and just the country and everything. So I feel like it's something I'm already thinking about a lot. And then I've noticed that there's a lot of times where people want to hear thoughts they're having, but said out loud because they don't have the opportunity to really talk about that stuff, or they feel like they can't, or whatever. So a lot of times I just talk about what I felt about certain things or how I feel about them now. And I find a lot of people are able to relate and appreciate being able to hear somebody who, thinks like them, especially if they're from like the Bible Belt or something where they don't have anybody around them that they can, talk to about deconstructing or leaving religion. Or even people who are religious but become less fundamentalist. There's a lot of that as well.
Absolutely.
Taylor, something I love about your content is that you're very blunt, but you don't come across as aggressive. And I think that goes a long way towards allowing you to communicate with people. Is that an approach that you've worked on, or is that just how you are, like chill and direct?
So I feel like I'm not direct in real life. Well, like when I say real life, I mean in my past, I feel like I've become a lot more direct, but I was very much a people pleaser type for like a long time. But I do think it's more effective to I do say what I actually think, but I try and not be insulting, and I also try not to I try to make it known when I'm talking about deconstructing from religion that there are so many different types of people out there, so many different types of beliefs, and there are specific things I'm talking about, but some of it might not apply to the people listening, and I just feel like it also talking to people with respect. I mean, there are things I say this all the time. There are things about religion I don't respect. If I'm being honest, there are some beliefs I don't respect, but I always try and respect the person, and I feel like that leaves the door open for people to feel comfortable asking questions or listening to my point of view. And I actually get quite a bit of messages from people who end up leaving religion and like message me and like thank me for my content, and I just always want to leave that door open to where if someone is still religious, they feel comfortable, listening to my content, because there was someone where when I was deconstructing, they made it comfortable enough for me to listen to their content while I was still a Christian, because they weren't so aggressive and like insulting about it. So I just think about how much that helped me, and I want to be able to do that for other people. But with that being said, I'm not always perfect. I will say that, but I try my best.
Yeah, no, I think you do a great job of that. I've noticed that too. You always kind of take care to point out, okay, I'm talking about this kind of wacky thing that's going on. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that everyone in this religion or everyone in this
right,
denomination is this way, but here's the thing that some people are doing or saying or
right.
believing. And that's something we deal with here too. A lot of folks come to
Hmm.
recover from religion who may not be leaving religion entirely, but they're leaving a particularly harmful sect or
Right,
denomination or cult or something like that. But, they're not necessarily atheist or agnostic. They were just harmed by a particular religious group. So
right.
we try not to make it to where people feel like they can't come here if they do still have religious beliefs. So that
Right. And something else I try and keep in mind is Christians from different countries, a lot of them aren't familiar with like the type of specific religion I grew up with. So sometimes if I talk about things regarding Christianity, they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I feel like the urge is to get upset and say like, "You're lying. That's not." And I understand why they're saying that, because they don't, because how religion functions can vary from country to country, because
Mhm.
it mixes with culture and politics and everything. So I'm trying to be aware of that when I talk about it as well, that that stuff is so different depending on, yeah, like what denomination, what country you're in, like all of that stuff. And I don't take it personally when people feel, upset when they hear me just say Christianity and then say something about it, because that's not the Christianity they know. So I get it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I have to watch myself on that too, because it may be similar to you, and I want to get into kind of, what your
Hmm.
background was, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But I kind of have to remind myself sometimes not everybody grew up in the version of fundamentalism that I did.
Right.
There are
Right.
people that were practicing this in a way that wasn't as
Hmm.
harmful as the way
Right.
I grew up. But
Yeah.
yeah, with that said, do you want to share a little bit about, are you comfortable sharing anything about what beliefs you grew up with and how you came
Mhm.
to not have those beliefs anymore?
Yeah, I grew up in evangelicalism, and very much just like the typical, I don't know, American evangelicalism, that we were like I grew up young earth creationist. We went to a lot of non-denominational churches, if that's what you want to call it. At least that's what they call themselves. And honestly, parts of it were chill, I feel like. I When I talk about my experience with Christianity, I don't pretend like it was all bad, because, those were a lot of years of my life that I spent with my family that I enjoyed and whatever else. But the older I got, the more I found issue with obviously what I was taught. And I also I I was in a bubble with evangelicalism for such a long time that I also didn't know I grew up fundamentalist. I thought everybody was fundamentalist. So I grew up with the belief that the Bible is literal, like every single thing in the Bible actually happened. And I thought that was just Christianity, period. I had no idea that the majority of Christians do not take the Bible in a literal way. Like they don't think, a giant flood happened in the ark, and yeah.
That's because we called those people
And
atheists.
Right. Yeah, religious people.
They
yeah,
weren't real
right.
Christians.
Yeah, I didn't even know people claimed, like, I didn't even know there were Christians out there that said that like I'm still a Christian, but I don't believe this. And yeah, I guess that's probably the reason is like they would be called that. But yeah, when I became like when I was in my early 20s, I ditched organized religion way before I became atheist. I just had no interest because I don't know. There were a lot of ways it didn't feel right. I also changed a lot of other views I had before I became atheist. So there were a lot of churches I felt like it was impossible for me to find a church I jived with anyway. But I tried to do the whole personal relationship thing instead. And my
I feel like so many people in our community can relate to that.
Yeah,
like, I've been there.
Yeah. Well, they really stress that in evangelicalism, like about the personal relationship thing and how, you can have a relationship with God no matter what. So to me, ditching the organized religion wasn't a big deal because of those kind of teachings. And once I started going out in the world that wasn't in my bubble, I was meeting all sorts of different people that I had never met before because my entire town was conservative, white, straight, cis, like everybody was the same. Everybody was Christian. And so when I went out and started basically working in the city over, I met all sorts of different people and it started clicking in my head of all these things that I've been told are not correct. They don't make any sense. So my views on things started slowly changing. I also would get very upset that I would talk to a lot of people who are different than me and they would tell me about their experience with Christianity because I was very, open about saying I was Christian. And it made me very upset to think about how badly they were being treated by religion. So for a long time, I had this mindset of I'm going to be the Christian that they like, or like I'm going to show them that Christianity isn't bad for like a really long time.
You've got that good
but then
testimony.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I was trying to do like all of that basically. But then I'm trying to think of a point where I really was wondering if it was true or not. It's hard to tell because again, it was such a slow burn. But I do remember there was sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like a lot of times with this stuff, there isn't a clean break. It's not a movie. Your life is not a. Some people it is, and it's very dramatic.
Yeah.
But like, it sounds like for you, you left the bubble, you met more people, and you were like, oh, wow, there's lots of people in the world, and Christianity is a lot more complex than I thought it was. And there wasn't any one like Rorschach moment where your whole life spiraled out of your hands and you realized, wow.
Right.
Like, it was just sort of like, oh, yeah, welcome to the new normal. Right.
There was like a couple months towards the end where I was kind of spiraling and watching every atheist Christian debate on planet Earth. Like I was obsessed with it because I'm like, I need to find out now what is going on and what I believe. And there was a big turning point for me where I actually was talking to a friend of a friend who was Jewish. And I asked him, why don't you believe in hell? Hell's in the Bible and it's in the Old and New Testament. And he's like, no, it's not. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
So that was like a shock to me. And then I started doing research into the history of hell. And I also was taking some religious classes in college where we talked about the development of hell. And I actually took a class on the witch burnings. Like it was like a witchcraft class, but about the history of it.
Right.
And I learned a lot about like the King James version of the Bible and how he weaponized the Bible to kill a lot of people. And that had a lot of gears like turning in my head. And then I actually went to therapy because I thought I needed therapy for a faith crisis that I was having. And it actually worked out really well because I did go see a Christian therapist and she was amazing. And I feel like she was actually a big part of my deconstruction, which is like awesome. But she was
Wow.
like, she was very encouraging of like me having my own opinions and thoughts and seeking those out and never discouraging it. And I don't know, she would only ever talk about God if I brought it up. And it was really nice. So
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of how I got there is, but
That's
definitely that
interesting.
2-month thing right before I allowed myself to be atheist. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
intense. Definitely the debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye.
Bill Nye.
Nye.
That
Guy
was such
like,
a big moment.
yeah.
Like that was a huge moment for
Yeah, it
me too.
was.
Like watching that, it was like,
interesting.
wow. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've heard people kind of criticize Bill Nye for doing that debate by saying, it gives more oxygen to, something that is completely unscientific and absurd. But
Mhm.
you're not the first person that I've heard say that. Would you say that it was actually impactful in you being able to think through your thoughts and beliefs on the subject?
Yeah, no, I think it was, I think it has done so much good that he did that, but I do understand why people say that because when scientists are talking to creationists, there's not much of a conversation to be had because if someone's just like, I reject factual information, there's really nothing to do. So I think that's why people are like, why have these conversations in the first place? But I do think, because he was like a prominent figure and we all knew him from like school or whatever, watching him in the classrooms. I think he had a big impact on a lot of Christians because I talk about how that debate had such a big impact on me and so many people who have left religion have said the same. So I think it was a big wake up call to a lot of people, especially the fact that Ken Ham was like so bad at it.
He's
I
terrible.
think played a big role. So it was just like
there's a book that tells you how it all happened.
Yeah.
So like the dialectic, the argument about the efficacy of debating, the ethics of debating, they come up a lot. They've come up on this show. And like, like that was a big moment for me. That was a big moment for you. That was a big moment for a lot of people. Ken Ham did get his stupid Ark Encounter funded the day after. Right?
Yeah.
Like there are different dimensions to look at it. But like as someone in the debate sphere yourself, right? Because obviously I have my opinions about these things. We all do. How do you see, the role of debate and deconstruction and the discussion around religion and religious freedom? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't think all debate is created equal. I think there's sometimes debate that's definitely just more entertainment purposes. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm into it. Sometimes I like it. I'll watch it. But I think there are different types of debates where I think some are actually very useful to the people watching them because I know how useful they were to me. And sometimes when I wouldn't say I'm like a debater, but I've had conversations back and forth with people, and people are always like, why would you have these conversations? You're not going to change their mind. Number one, you don't know that. I change my mind. That's the whole reason I make content. But number two, it's not always to change the person's mind. Sometimes it's for the people watching. And I know how much of an impact that has. So there are a lot of people who will be in my comment section that say debate is useless. And I'm like, we've been doing it for thousands of years. That's how we progress as a society. At least that's what I believe. So without debate, nothing would ever change. Nothing, ever.
Yeah.
So but I think people probably say that because there's a lot of debate slop out there that is more for entertainment purposes.
I kind of think of debates like plans. Individual plans are useless, but the practice of planning is very useful.
Right.
And maybe debates as a way of just thinking through different topics in more of a systematic and organized way is beneficial, even if that particular debate isn't necessarily going to change the mind of the person on the other side of it. But like you said,
exactly.
Right.
or people who want to kind of get a better handle on a topic, and they want to hear people present the best arguments that they can think of and then evaluate those on their own. I do think that's useful for people, as long as we're not expecting that, okay, now that I have learned the good talking points, I am going to go deconvert all of my family members, because that's probably not
right.
how
Yeah, no. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe it's worked for somebody out there, but I would love to know who they are and how they manage that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
But, well, something else that y'all kind of both touched on a few minutes ago was this idea of like a debate kind of being a collision of different ways of knowing and thinking, and you could say different worldviews even. And something that you talk about, Taylor, is kind of this concept of when you're deconstructing, you're sort of grieving, leaving this other worldview and taking on a new one. Do you want to describe a little bit about what that was like for you? Like, what is it that you're grieving necessarily when you're doing this deconstruction work?
Yeah, I really like talking about the grieving aspect, because I think a lot of people who have always been in religion and haven't left don't realize all of the grief involved, and it's like extremely painful. I know when I first came to the conclusion that I was atheist, I felt devastated. I didn't really I felt like I didn't have a choice in the matter. I just was not convinced. There were times where I wish I could almost take it back, like the information I was learning or what I was looking up. But I also wasn't willing to just pretend. But when I did decide to finally be atheist, I knew that I would be losing a lot of things. And that would be like my quote unquote objective moral standards, like where I get my morals from, what relationships look like, what my future would look like, what my afterlife would look like all of that was just gone. And there was a lot of freedom there, but people always say freedom as if like it's always a positive thing. And I do think it's positive, but it can also be very scary and involve a lot of grief, because there's no one telling you what to do or what to believe or whatever. And if you're doing that for the first time, and like you're at any age, but when you're like a grown adult and you've believed it your whole life, it's a little horrifying. But I think that one of the things I grieved the most was the idea that I wouldn't have an afterlife, and then also because I do not believe that anymore, and then also what my family would think, because my entire family is Christian and I do not have a single relative that is not Christian. And I knew that would be devastating to them, and I felt responsible for like breaking their heart essentially. And that made me really nervous. And I also was already grieving how that would change our relationship. And it has. And, I still have a relationship with them and I love them and they love me, but it is very different than, when I was a Christian. And that was a thing I definitely had to grieve. But that's one thing I wish a lot of people knew. From the outside, like Christians, I wish they understood how devastating it is for a lot of people when they leave. That where there's so many things we're grieving, and how hard it is to lose your entire worldview and start from scratch. It's not easy. It's actually pretty horrifying. And there are a lot of like pros to being like becoming atheist, but in that moment of it all falling apart, it felt like there were a lot more cons. So yeah, that was the two biggest things for me. And also I wanted to mention when the thought of no longer having an afterlife was really devastating to me, because my father passed away in my early 20s, and he was like I don't even know how to say this. He was a Christian. He was like an amazing person. And that was just something I think you grieve different if you're religious versus if you're an atheist. And so I went through this weird phase of totally re-grieving him, because I no longer had the band-aid of, oh, I'm going to see him again, or we're going to be reunited in heaven. I had to come to this realization of like, that was it. And that was pretty devastating, and very weird to do grieving again, like 8 years later. But it kind of had to be done. I didn't have a choice, but yeah, that was a huge thing for me. And I think that's something that not enough people talk about, but I do hear people mention it, about how they have to re-grieve someone who's already passed away when they leave religion due to that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's such a hard thing to even wrap your head around. I mean, we've done it. By the way, I do want to just say, please, if you're watching us on YouTube, like the stream. It helps us big time in the algorithm. Doesn't cost you anything. But Taylor, like, yeah, seriously, losing heaven, losing certainty, having to grieve your father again. I mean, these are really common things that people go through, and something that we see on the helpline a lot when people come to us looking for support and recovering from religion. And I just wonder, like, how did you rebuild? Because it's one thing to deconstruct, right? I've once heard the saying that destruction is the work of an afternoon, creation is the work of a lifetime, right? And I mean, what helped you, right?
I feel like sometimes I got really lucky compared to a lot of people. So I feel like sometimes when people ask me that, I feel weird guilt because I recognize that if like for me, two of my very best friends basically had not the same experience as me, but they just became like general theist and left Christianity essentially. So I was very lucky that I was able to speak my mind to them and say whatever and have these conversations with them. But there were a lot of times where I did still feel extremely lonely because I had totally rejected anything having to do with an afterlife or God. And I think that I took it very seriously, maybe compared to some people who are like, I don't know, it might be real, it might not be. Like, I couldn't live in that gray area really. And I feel like I'm lucky in the way where when I started posting on social media, I feel like I got community, it felt like almost instantly. And I feel like I got lucky in the way that I just decided to start posting. And it helped me a lot. And I know not everybody is comfortable with, saying these things and putting their face online. And I don't blame them at all, because there were certain people in my life when they ended up discovering my content, it felt devastating to me. Like, I didn't even want them to see it. So I get, that's the whole reason I didn't even use my first name for the first couple of years. But I feel lucky in that way because I was able to find so many people online who resonated with almost every experience I've ever had with it. And it made me feel way less lonely, to the point where that was basically, I feel like my therapy, or whatever you want to call it, was just getting online and being able to talk about it with people. Yeah. And I feel kind of guilty about that because I feel like some people do not have that at all. So, but I mean, it's great. That's why recovery from religion is so good, because online, I feel like online is where a lot of people go to find community after, because it's hard. I mean, obviously religion has community down to a science. I mean, they meet up multiple times a week in person, and it's hard to replicate that a lot of times. It's really hard.
Well, and sometimes the threat or kind of the strategy to stop people from leaving is the threat of taking away that community, right? Like, you're not going to be able to engage with these people anymore. You're not going to have the same relationship with them. And in some groups, you may be, actually shunned or excommunicated or whatever the process is, to where you are not able to have those relationships anymore. And that is a strong threat to keep people in something, even if they don't believe it anymore, because we're social. Even those of us that are more on the introverted side of the spectrum, like, we still rely on other people in our lives to support us and be a part of our community. So that's scary.
Absolutely.
It's not just, it's nice to have friends and go hang out on Sundays. Like, this is a real part of people's ability to feel connected to other humans and be successful in their lives.
Yeah, I feel lucky because a lot of people do explain to me, like, people, again, living in the Bible Belt, who their church gatherings and everything, that's their everything. That's their only community. So when people say stuff like, why don't they just leave, or why don't they just, it's like, it's not that simple. And some people I felt like it was a really hard time for me, but I can't imagine even some other scenarios where nobody is around to talk to at all.
Those communities are hard too, because, like, I live in a city and I've never wanted for something to do on a Saturday night. There are game stores, there are comic book stores, there are coffee shops. Like, small towns, it's the church, they're having a hoedown, like,
exactly.
If you don't do that, you're not going to meet girls, you're not going to have anything to do, you're going to be lonely. You're going to be ostracized.
Yeah, exactly.
Then people
That's
start
definitely
saying
the
you're a
case.
witch, and go downhill from there.
So speaking
No,
of which, I mean, like, you've been able to make yourself like a personality that people know and find comfort with. And you might not realize that, but parasocial relationships are a thing. And I'm just wondering, like, where did that really start? Because you started posting, I guess, on YouTube or TikTok, right? And sharing your story. When did you start making content that was more interactive?
So when I first became an atheist, I started listening to a podcast like nonstop where it was just people sharing their stories. It was called The Graceful Atheist. I think it stopped existing like years ago. But I actually wrote in the guy and I was like, I really want to like talk to you. Would you have me on or whatever? And he was like, yeah. He wrote me back and was like, yeah, and I was super excited. And he's like, do you have any social media that you want me to mention? And I was like, no. And then like a week went by and I was like, yes. And so I'll just make an account and like, why not? Maybe this is like, it would be a good start. And so that's when I made my TikTok and I just started posting videos and it started going well. I had no intention of doing it to this extent or to keep doing this. I don't know. It just kind of ended up that way. But no, it was good. I was thankful that there were so many people who wanted the same thing I did, which was to connect with other people. There was also the scary side to it, obviously, like I said, where I for the longest time I wanted to be anonymous. I didn't want anybody, obviously my face is there, but I didn't want anybody to know my government name. I didn't want my family to I like blocked everybody I knew in real life. Obviously the more the account grew, the less that was realistic.
Right.
So I had to get over that, but I feel like things are good now where it feels good to not hide it from anybody in my life, because that can be pretty stressful of when are they going to find out? What are they going to think of me when they find out my opinions on this certain subject or whatever? Because I don't talk about my opinions about religions or on religion with my family at all, like ever. So that can be nerve-wracking.
Do they know about your channel?
Yeah, I don't know when they discovered it, but they did mention it this past year, and my heart like dropped into my stomach.
You should have wore a domino mask like Robin or something. They'd never figure it out.
Literally.
So you didn't like tell them at all that you were not religious anymore? They found you on the internet and that's how they found out?
No, I think people in my family know I'm atheist through other family members. So I had a conversation with two of my siblings because my only immediate family is me and my siblings. So I had a conversation with two of them because they just happened to be there. It wasn't planned. It was a hot mess. It was like word vomit just came up because they kind of what's the word? They were like kind of drilling at me about it because I think they sensed something was off. And so then that conversation happened, which I could not sleep for like a week after it happened because I thought that it just felt horrible. I don't know. Like you would have thought I killed somebody, but it was horrible. And that was definitely a big part of my grief too, because I was afraid of what people would think about me. And I had this feeling that they would look at me as like this sad, lost person that didn't know what they were doing, and I definitely feel like that is how they felt, but you can't control other people's emotions obviously. But I haven't had that conversation with anybody else in my family, but I assume that it's gone through the grapevine without me saying it directly.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I know for a lot of people, and it was this way for me too. I mean, part of the difficulty of deconstruction also is like while you're still deconstructing, you know that you don't believe anymore, but you're still sometimes walking around with a lot of the assumptions and ideas and values that you've kind of been indoctrinated with. And some people talk about feeling guilt or shame, even though they don't believe it and they don't think it's real. They still have these they're still afraid about hell, or they feel like they're doing something wrong and bad because they were kind of trained to feel that way. Did you experience anything like that? Was that part of why you hadn't brought it up with your family?
Yeah, I feel like the fear of hell thing obviously played a big role, and I feel like it plays a big role with a lot of people. But I was really afraid to tell them because I knew that they would have this heartbreak of, oh, she's going to burn in hell forever. And there was even a comment made like, what if you die driving home? And there's still obviously this like not subconscious but thought in the back of my head like what percentage could this happen, right? And any
Yeah.
percentage is horrifying, right?
Mhm.
Because I obviously don't know everything. I'm human, so anything could be possible, I guess. I'm not in this like mindset of like no every like it couldn't possibly happen, but I think it's not likely. But when someone, I don't know. I feel like at that point it was still kind of like it still kind of worked on me in the way that it like worried me a little bit. I don't think it does
Mhm.
anymore because it's been years since then, but no, fear was definitely still very ingrained in me of like, what if what they say is true? But a big turning point for me was the realization that I didn't have a say on whether I was convinced or not. I wasn't convinced. I couldn't
Right.
force myself to be convinced. And so I was like, if God's gonna like burn me in hell for all of eternity for not being able to force myself to believe in something, there's nothing I can do about it anyway. And then I also had a mindset for a while where if there is a God and he actually is a good God, I don't think I would go to hell anyway. So I don't think there would be a hell.
Swedenborg style, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really important point that you bring up too, that it's not necessarily a choice. Oftentimes, it's kind of framed to people as like, oh, you're in rebellion against God and you just want to sin or whatever. But
Right.
I can pretend to believe it if that's what you're asking. I can pretend that I
Right.
believe it, but wouldn't God know the difference?
Let me put it to you a different way.
Yeah.
When I deconstructed, I really wanted to believe that Odin was real and was my father. And as much as I told people that, I was like, I'm playing. It's not real. Like
Yeah.
you can't force yourself to believe
Right.
things,
Right. And that is something I said, like, do you want me to pretend
Right.
when like
Mhm.
I was
Right.
confronted like with and they didn't really have an answer actually. I feel like maybe they would have been happy. One second.
I think a lot of people, it's okay. I think a lot of people don't question these beliefs. They're in church and it's really easy for them to just go along with it and not think too deeply about it. It's their culture, it's all they know,
Yeah.
and nothing jostles them out of their perfect stupor of life, right? And
Yeah.
when you're having these big conversations like, do you want me to pretend? They're like, what are you talking
Maybe.
about? Maybe, I don't know.
But also I feel like when I explain to them the thing of, I don't control whether I'm fully convinced or not,
Right.
they aren't, from the conversation I had and conversations I've had, they aren't willing to accept that was my experience, because then they would have to evaluate this entire belief system of like, why is God punishing people for not being convinced of something if they don't have full,
Right.
control over their mind? So like I asked the question, like if I asked you to believe the grass outside was pink for 5 minutes, could you do that? And they said yes, which I feel like is a lie.
Yeah,
But I
it's
think they
just,
had to convince themselves that that's the case, or else what's the alternative? The alternative is questioning your entire belief system, and not a lot of people are going to do that,
but I
right?
mean, that is Christian
Yeah.
doctrine, right? I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
Catholic Church has that whole bit that they wrote, the Harrowing of Hell, where Mr. Jesus, after he dies, he makes a little detour to hell to let all the virtuous pagans out because they went to hell because the Jesus hadn't happened. And it's like, wait, you're telling me Abraham and
Yeah.
Moses and all those patriarchal motherfuckers went to hell because they didn't know the Jesus?
Right.
The rules were different, no? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But that's what they believe. And it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an
Yeah.
unchallenged belief. And I think that that's
Right.
why what you do is really important, because you're not just providing like context for deconstruction, you're also like asking the big questions and the questions that got you to start thinking critically. And
Yeah.
common sense isn't
Yeah.
that common, and critical thinking is a skill that has to be taught, I feel,
Yeah, and definitely I feel like when growing up in fundamentalist religion
Oh
is
yeah.
a huge thing, because I think it's different than just growing up with the type of Christianity where you're not rejecting science or evolution or anything like that. Because I believed things like humans existed with dinosaurs up until I was like 25, which is pretty
Right.
embarrassing. But it's because you're growing up in this thing where you're rejecting you're just rejecting reality. And I think that when you do that for years upon years, it really damages like how you're able to take in new information. You're kind of been resisting that your whole life, so it can be, you know, painful growing pains.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much to it when you grow up in some of those traditions that take the text so literally, and they go to such great pains to shield you from accessing, you know, contradictory information. Once you finally do realize, oh, some of this may not be true, it's hard to know like how far down, you know, the rabbit hole do you need to go to unravel this, because, you know, like you, and I've told this on here before, but like I was 30 and a teaching assistant in a forensic anthropology class before I found out that men and women typically have the same number of ribs. It's not that like men are missing one, because God used it to make Eve from Adam.
Somebody called it to Jovan recently, and they were asserting that, and Jovan was like, "Wait, really?"
I actually didn't know that was a thing, like, ever, until I started deconstructing. Like, I was never told that, but I'm sure that people around me believe that. I just, for some reason, had never heard it. But I also came to learn that some evangelicals thought, like I was taught, where dinosaurs and humans existed at the same time, but some say that dinosaurs didn't exist at all. So there's like there's those weird variations of creationism as well, which I didn't even know there was.
There's also like Jewish creationism, which is a whole other ball.
Oh, I didn't know that existed, so I just learned that just now.
Amazing. Yeah, and I remember when I was younger too, we had some neighbors, and they were people that went to our same church, but one day, one of them, the girl was like close to my age, and she was telling me about how, oh yeah, you know, in our church we don't believe that dinosaurs really existed, and here's all the reasons why. And later I was telling that to my mom, and she got like so upset about it, was like, oh no, this is wrong theology. And I didn't understand why it was such a big deal at the time. I was like, oh, okay, they had some different idea about dinosaurs, like who cares? But it's such a big deal in those groups to have all that information like packaged up in just such a way that, you know, this is how we believe the book, and you can't deviate from it, because it all starts to unravel if you pull on those threads even a little bit, I guess.
So did she believe like the thing of them existing with humans? Was that
my family did, yes. They all existed together. The Earth is between 4,000 to 6,000 years old. We're not really sure which that actually was the part that bothered me the most. Was, okay, you are absolutely positively sure that you know how old the Earth is, but your margin of error is like 50%. What do you mean?
My people have it down to the century. I think it's like 5,700 and something years.
Really?
Yeah, there were these calendars you can buy actually, and it'll give you the month, the day, and it'll give you the year, and the year is like the year 5,000 whatever of.
Wow.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I also went to the Creation Museum like growing up, so that was super fun.
Was it fun?
Oh yeah. I actually want to go back, like, as I am now.
I'd love to go, but I'd be laughing a lot. Like, I'm very obnoxious.
Oh, I will be laughing.
Like, they don't care. They got your money. They don't care. I'm a paying customer. Give me my Adam and Eve cup. You know, I don't know. Whatever they do.
I would love
Moses
to know.
Action figures. You know, dollies of the dove. You know?
How many people are going to that just to like look at it ironically and make jokes and kill themselves?
Well, I have seen like people in the deconstruction community go there and like film it and talk about it.
Yeah, like, it's not going anywhere. You might as well. I mean,
We have an episode, actually I think we have a couple of episodes of this. Ross Blotcher came on the show once and shared, he's got a presentation about his trip to the Ark Encounter. I'll pull the link for that and drop it in the chat later.
Aren't these churches that are tax exempt too? Like,
yeah, and they're just funding that.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Oh well.
But it's one of those things where I know you've mentioned before on your show, Taylor, that like at first you felt kind of embarrassed about, you know, what you had believed or what you didn't know. I know that's something that a lot of people have expressed in in recovering from religion, you know, feeling embarrassment about either what they believed or what they tried to convince other people of. Was there anything that kind of helped you get past that feeling of embarrassment and just kind of move on with, well, okay, this is what I was taught. It's not what I think now.
Yeah. I think a big help with that was my husband, because he's always been an atheist. He's very intelligent. He's an engineer. He's just a very smart guy. And whenever I like said what I believed, and I was going through all of that, and I mentioned the dinosaur people thing, he was like so nice to me about it, and just so, I don't know, he didn't make me feel like I was an idiot. And in my mind, I'm like, if somebody like him, who I admire, doesn't think I'm an idiot, like, why do I care what anybody else would think about it? And I feel like after that, I didn't really care. In videos, I talk about like how I was embarrassed, or like it is a little like embarrassing, but not. I think there are people out there who will hear me say stuff like that and be like, "Oh my gosh, she's such an idiot," or there are people out there who say all religious people are idiots, and I try to remind people that that is a very fundamentalist way of thinking.
Yeah.
That is what I'm trying to get away from, is that black and white type of thinking, and it's not productive at all, and it lacks so much nuance of how people grow up and indoctrination and all of these different aspects, that nobody should be ashamed if they come out of it. That's for sure. That's how I feel about it.
Shame is a big motivating factor for people, and something I've learned from working the helpline is people really just want to be heard, and then they'll listen to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that you found, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. I think that's what a lot of people want, and it's so simple. But I think that religion can really block that, obviously, because you always have to come to the same conclusion. Even if you're taking in information, if it doesn't align with the conclusion you have to get to, it usually is just rejected or ignored or whatever it is. So I know that's frustrating for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, and you know, since you kind of mentioned that you did some of your deconstruction sort of online as you were, you know, streaming and making shows and talking with people, did you feel like as you talked with other people, you know, in the comments to your show and on your shows, were there any kind of themes or sort of lessons that you learned from other people that helped you along your journey as you were deconstructing, that you were like, oh man, yeah, that really clicks. That makes me feel better now? Or
I'm trying to think. I think a big influence on me was a lot of the creators on that space, especially like how they interact with people and how they spoke about things really helped me. But yeah, just people saying they've had the same experience like really gave me a boost in morale, and then also gave me a lot more confidence, because I'm like, okay, this isn't like a one-off thing, and obviously this community exists for a reason. Like I was surprised at how big the community was on TikTok, and the community is also cool, where a lot of times when you get on TikTok and you start talking about like ex-religious stuff or leaving religion, so many of them will just like flock to you and follow you, like bigger ones, because it's like a, you know, community and space that this was very welcoming, is what I'm trying to say. Like I was shocked when I first started joining how welcoming everybody was, even like the creators that were so much bigger than me. And that meant a lot. And I think it's because part of the community is about, you know, helping people, or like interacting with people who have also left. So it makes sense in hindsight. Yeah.
And was this just you doing lives, or was this you posting videos on TikTok every day or every other day?
I was just posting videos on TikTok. I started going live for a while, and I was like shaking in my boots the first time I did it, but I was doing lives for a while, and those were fun because I was actually able to have conversations with people live on chat, and that was really nice to get to know people more on that level.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, you're making me want to try it.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I might.
You really should.
I do a lot.
It's a good time.
We're live now.
Oh my gosh. By the way, like the stream. I said it before. Like the stream. It helps out, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're excited to be able to have more of that interaction, now that we're on YouTube and Zoom simultaneously. So shout out to
Yeah.
everybody that has been joining us and that's liking the show and interacting in the chat. And don't forget, if you have a question for Taylor, to drop it in the chat, and we'll ask a couple of those at the end if we get any good questions. And don't forget, we're working to try and get to see a guinea pig guest here. So come on, y'all.
Oh yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Those are the noises I hear every morning, like
I
7
know.
a.m. sharp. Week.
Anytime you open the fridge or you crinkle a
Yeah.
bag, week.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly.
Now, okay, not to get too far off topic, but you do also do guinea pig content, right? How did that start?
Yeah,
And is that related to this?
No, I think people think it's really random, and I also think people think it's silly because of like I said, people view them as like kids' pets, but they're really not. I don't think they are at all. I think they get like neglected a lot. But we got a guinea pig on a whim, which I don't recommend ever. It ended up great for me. Like, I love them, but I don't know what I was thinking getting it on a whim. Like with my rabbits, I did a bunch of research and I was like prepared to litter train them, and they were going to be like free roam and stuff like that. With the guinea pig, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah, my policy with pets is before you buy the pet, you buy a book. That's your first thing.
Yes.
And I'm happy to hear that you have guinea pigs plural. You didn't just buy a pig and just keep poor pig alone, because piggies need friends. They need friends. They will
literally
die.
the next day we had like, so the whim guinea pig was unfortunately from a pet store, which I don't recommend buying guinea pigs for the pet store, but all of my other guinea pigs have been from like Facebook Marketplace. But yeah, I love it. I think I'll have guinea pigs for the rest of my life, and making content is fun because it's just a switch up, because sometimes I would get really I would get really burnt out with the deconstruction content because sometimes it's just so serious and kind of it's kind of a drag sometimes. So it was nice to just switch over to the other account and have like a whole new thing. And it's funny because a lot of people say, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not used to seeing this side of you, because on my guinea pig account, I'm like so happy and I'm like laughing and I'm like, I don't know, not serious at all. So yeah, I like having those different options.
I love that. Now, do you feel like deconstructing from religion impacted the way you relate to other animals at all?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, it definitely did, because I mean, I think a lot of evangelicals are raised this way, but like we have a soul and they don't, and type thing. That leads people, I think, to treat animals very differently. But one thing about me though, it didn't really I have always really, really loved animals and always had a lot of empathy for them compared to everybody else around me. So it's not like a ton changed. Like the way I treat animals didn't change, but the way I'm like, I'm just another animal. Like that changed, where I'm like, I mean, I don't know. It's just, it was a weird realization. I'm like, we're not, like, I don't have, like, yes, we have the ability to maybe, create a morality system or have that deeper sentience or whatever, but at the same time I'm like, man, we really are just animals, and that's not the way I viewed it for my whole life. But yeah, it definitely changed my view on them.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like, I guess kind of like you, I always, really loved other animals, but it always seemed like that was considered to be like silly or incorrect, because if you were taking this very literal kind of fundamentalist reading of the Bible, which I would argue you don't even if you take the Bible literally, you don't necessarily have to take this view, but it was regarded as the canon or whatever, that people are sort of after God, there's people, and then people have dominion over all of the animals, and kind of the story out of Genesis where Adam named all the animals and everything. And it comes along with quite a bit of baggage, I feel like, where, you're able to use and abuse animals in a certain way if you come from that kind of approach, rather than thinking of something that's more like, well, we're all different kinds of animals. We're mammals, and here's why we have these traits and they have those traits, but we're all kind of sharing this planet together and are perhaps an important part of a shared ecosystem.
I don't understand how
which is
you can have
very
like
different.
how you can have a dog or a guinea pig or any creature capable of any kind of emotion, feeling. I mean, all my dragons are over 10 years old and they have their hides. Some of them like to cuddle, some of them like to show their teeth, some of them like apples, some of them like bananas. I have a little fishy that plays with me every morning when I wake up.
Aww.
Like, seriously, like,
yeah, they all have personalities.
If that's not what a soul is, then because I don't believe in the soul, right? I just don't. However, like, if you could extract me, what would it be? It would be the totality of my memories, my feelings, and that's who I am, right? Like the Buddhists might disagree, but you know, if something's getting uploaded to a robot body or a server like San Junipero and you know, Black Mirror, that's what it's going to be. And like my fish has it. You know, little Grub here has it. He loves to sleep on my shoulder, right? You know, so
yeah. And I so often wrestled with the problem of animal suffering as well, because a lot of people would explain to me that human suffering has all this meaning and like we get to heaven or whatever, and then I'm like, so what is the point of animal suffering then? And like every time I asked that question, it was never answered, and it felt pretty cruel that all of these animals, especially a lot of animals out in nature or like even being abused by humans or whatever, they just get to live, suffer, and die, and it's not for anything. It's just for us. And so that destroys their narrative of there's like no such thing as unnecessary suffering. I'm like, they're unnecessarily suffering. If they don't have a soul, they're not going to heaven or hell. What is the point? There is no point.
Well, you know, if you ask G-Man, he might say that, you know, there's no starving Christian children, right? You know.
But what about the animals that just like eat each other? Like, and that's what that's also
if animals
what
are just here to feed us and do our work for us, like oxen, why do they feel pain? Why do they feel sadness? Why do they cry? Like,
Right. No, yeah, exactly.
Maybe they should have accepted Jesus, then they wouldn't suffer, you know.
No, but I got that thing a lot where people in my family would make fun of me of how attached to animals I would get. And also I grew up around like a wooded area, so I actually had like a ton of interaction with animals, and some of that included like seeing a sick animal or a dying animal. And I mean, as a child I would sit there and cry, and like as an adult I still get made fun of for caring about it. And so like, for instance, when my one guinea pig passed away this past year, I was not going to say anything about it because it's like a joke to some people, and it's just, I don't know. I always was ashamed of that part of myself, and then after I left, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like that's one of the things I value about myself.
Friends come in all shapes and sizes and species. You know, like I won't hear it, man. You know, it could be a colony of sea monkeys. That's your friend. You know, you love that thing.
Well, and I feel like it goes back to, you know, something you've talked about before, Taylor, about, you know, kind of the way empathy sometimes has to take a back seat in order to have these, you know, very strict kind of fundamentalist beliefs. Because if you think too hard about it and, you know, you have compassion and consideration for other people, it can become intolerable. And I think the way that we treat animals has definitely been one of those issues for me that always bothered me so much. And I felt so relieved after not being religious anymore to not have to think about other animals in that same way anymore.
And just to bring it back too. I mean, like, I don't know if you want to go here, but like me and Kara both watched one of your recent videos where you must have watched so many TikToks to get this content, but like TikToks of people cheering and dancing to pop songs about the Iran war, right? And like, there is this attitude from evangelicals in the wake of I don't remember what triggered it. So, the news cycle moves so fast, I can't keep up. But some Christian leader said something about the sin of empathy, right?
Oh, yeah, that's been a big thing.
That's been a big thing. And like, what's going on? I mean, like, what are your views on that? Like,
I think there's like just a lot of cruelty being normalized, and I think to be able to fit accepting that in their religion at the same time, you're right, like what you said, that empathy gets in the way of that a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think they need to make people believe that sometimes empathy is bad and sometimes you shouldn't have empathy for people and the sin of empathy. And it's sad because a lot of things that they want like their fellow Christians to be okay with, they're not going to be okay with, obviously, if they're caring about their empathy. And one way you can normalize cruelty is by like dehumanization, and you can only do that if you're knocking away people's empathy. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to do. And I mean, we've seen it throughout history time and time and time again, and it's just history repeats itself, obviously. And it's really frustrating too, because like I said, the entire time I grew up was like, get tougher skinned, grow up, don't care so much, don't have all of these feelings. And it very much does run in religion of like, that stuff doesn't really matter if it's going against what they believe God wants. It doesn't even matter if what the Bible really says. If it's like against their narrative, then, empathy's the enemy at some point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of the things that I really feel relieved about. And I know you've talked about this too, even though tonight we were kind of talking about grieving the old worldview that you have to sort of deconstruct from. There's also a lot of nice things on the other side. And I feel like this is one of them, being able to have, a better relationship with other animals and even other people is definitely one of those for me. And that's not to say that, everybody who's religious, treats everyone and everything horribly and everyone who isn't religious doesn't. That's not the case, of course. But I do feel like in my case, and it sounds like in all of our cases, we kind of felt like we had permission to have more empathy and compassion after leaving that faith, which is kind of counterintuitive. That's not how people often describe it.
Right. Yeah, they definitely describe the religion as, well, at least they used to. Sometimes the people who used to describe religion as all about love and mercy and grace, now they don't sound like that to me. Now they don't say those same things. But that was a big part of my deconstruction, is watching that change. But one of my favorite things now after leaving is actually going to the Smithsonian. And because I'm an hour from DC, so it's super fun to go there. I just went there actually a couple of weeks ago, but I spend an extra long amount of time in the evolution of people because I didn't believe it for so long, or I didn't know anything about it, that I'll just stand there and like look at every little thing because I'm like, damn, that's crazy. Because like I didn't know this stuff before, and I'm still learning new stuff every day. I mean, there's a lot to catch up on. But actually, right after I became atheist, I told my husband to take me to the Smithsonian for my birthday. So we went there, and it was funny because I was looking at the dinosaur stuff, and I was standing beside this like 9-year-old boy. And we were both like reading it. I feel like learning a bunch of stuff together, and it was just a funny experience because I'm like, damn, that's just crazy. I don't know. I wasn't it was a good thing though. Like I was really happy about it, that I was like, I'm at this point now and I'm just able to learn, and it's really cool.
That's one of my favorite things too about, being non-religious now, is you get to learn about whatever you want, and you don't have to try and make it sort of do these gymnastics to make it fit the narrative. You can just learn new information and wow, now I know new information. This is interesting.
It's really nice to be able to go through life like that, just learning new information and then applying it to your life. And that was a big thing with morality as well. Like morality can change with the information you've been given, and at least that's my experience. And it felt so good to be able to like actually, I don't know, build my morality on what I thought was right versus wrong, because there did become a time period close to the end where I felt like my morality was like butting heads with the Christian morality. And I feel like it prevented me from accepting people where they were, loving people how they were, having empathy the ways that I did. And I'm like, I don't care about the things they're telling me to care about.
Right.
Like, my morals and values are somewhere else. And
all the culture war narge guy. Yeah, man.
Exactly.
Well, we're right at about an hour, and I feel like we've kind of come full circle and ended on a really nice note. But is there anything else that either of y'all want to talk about before we kind of wrap up and go to some questions?
I don't think so. I liked ending on a nice note. That's good.
Yeah,
Me
man.
too. Yeah, this was great. This was so fascinating. I love every week. I love learning new things from all of our guests. This has been really nice to kind of hear about your journey, and
Yeah, this was fun.
this was great. And also, if people want to hear more from you, where should they go to find your content?
Skeptical Heretic on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, but like I'm trying to be better about posting on Instagram, so you can find me there if that's like all you're on. But yeah, TikTok and YouTube are my main platforms. And then I am also a host on The Line, which is on YouTube on Tuesday nights. So yeah, that's where you can find
Cool.
me.
Yeah. And how often do you post to TikTok and YouTube respectively?
YouTube, I'm trying to do a video a week, which is like 20 to 30 minutes long. And then
Yeah.
TikTok, I just be posting what pops in my head, I swear. Like I could not post for 3 days and then I could post 6 times in one day.
You're like,
Like,
oh, I'm
within
holding
an
my
hour.
phone. I guess I'll stop
Yes.
doom scrolling and post to TikTok. Hey, what's
Yo,
up?
exactly. I have a thought pop in. I'm like, all right,
That's awesome.
time to make a little video. Yeah.
Love it.
Well, that's
So
great.
YouTube is a little more structured then.
Yeah,
Got
exactly.
it. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, different audience. Yeah. Cool.
Love it. Well, I've put your links in the chat so folks can
Awesome.
come and find you when they're doom scrolling too, and have something more positive and educational.
Take them
on the
out of
theme.
their doom scrolling. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for doing that work. I know it is meaningful for people, like
Yeah.
we've discussed tonight. So I'm glad
Yeah,
you're doing that.
absolutely. Me too.
And we do have one question that came in. It's kind of a two-part question. If you're okay with taking a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone is asking, how do you approach death now that you've had to grieve twice for your family member? And are there any other things or like rituals that you have adopted to kind of deal with it in a new way?
Yeah, so I'm somebody who's pretty honest about how I deal with that now, which is I mean I consider myself a nihilist, but I don't pretend like it's all rainbows and sunshine because sometimes I really struggle with it. I have gotten way better with it. But to me, the nihilism is just like a lot of things in my life where there's positive moments, there's moments that feel negative. It's just something I live with, and I feel very realistic and fine about that because to me, it's also kind of like grieving a loved one where that never really goes away. Sometimes like you can look back and just be happy about memories. Sometimes you're sad. That's kind of how I think about now, like, you know, when it regards to dying and like no longer existing, essentially. I will say there were some books that really helped me when I was going through that. One I always recommend to people is called The Sunny Nihilist, and it just is like a more positive perspective on nihilism, if that's what you consider yourself. A lot of people consider nihilism very negative. I just think it's neutral. I think it's like not positive or negative, and I think you could make it positive or negative, but to me it's just kind of a neutral thing that I feel different about depending on the day. So I forget that last part.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
I was just gonna say no, go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm so sorry. I was just gonna say that like I found nihilism to be so freeing, and it's really just a lens to look at the world, right? I mean,
yeah, and I think people think nihilism and they think like, you know, you can't possibly have any meaning or whatever. I'm like, that just means you create your own. You can always create your own meaning. It just comes from you. And I think if you're raised religious, that's an uncomfortable thing because it doesn't feel real, quote unquote, to people. But it's just as real as what people get from religion. So, yeah. I think I didn't remember the other half of that.
Oh,
yeah.
Let me grab it. I will Kara's looking too.
Yeah. Okay, I've got it here. It was, are there other rituals or other things that you've adopted to deal with your grief about death and dying now?
That's a good question. I feel like this is gonna maybe sound weird, but ever since I became atheist, I really dove back into my like artistic side. Like I really always loved art and stuff. And for some reason it never felt important. And then after deconstruction, it just felt so important to me. It felt like such a great outlet for me in so many different ways. So I spend so much time crafting. I crochet a lot. I do clay stuff. I do junk journaling. That's fun to me. But that's something that just those like small things I try and live in the moment. As
Yeah.
opposed to I feel like when I was a Christian, I was always like, can't wait to get to heaven. Like that's the good part. And instead now I'm like, I feel like it gives me more of this is the time to enjoy stuff. This is the time to feel fulfilled and like do something that feels meaningful to me or makes life feel good, because a lot of times now life is just about experiences and enjoying those experiences. And so I feel like I get that a lot when I do stuff like art projects that make me feel fulfilled. I don't know, that might not like resonate with some people, but yeah.
I mean, we're big believers, at least I am, in the healing power of art here. So I love that. And I find it paradoxical that embracing nihilism and the fact that there is no inherent meaning to things freed you to be more happy and enjoy your life more and be a more positive, helpful person to yourself and others, you know, which yeah. We have more questions too that were added. Did religious topics get argued about with your husband before you changed worldviews? You know?
So there was like a time period where before we got married, we actually dated on and off, and I feel like a point of tension was like the religion thing, because I always felt like I couldn't, you know, like I liked him so much, but I felt like I could never bring him around my family because he was an atheist, and I wasn't going to ask somebody to lie. Like, so there were like little things here and there, but he never, you know, went at it from a judgmental thing. It was more like I was devastated that he wasn't Christian. And then when I went through my, you know, deconstruction phase, we were together, and it was amazing because he did not say a single word about it. And that's exactly what I needed, was for everybody to just shut up and not tell me what to believe. And so it was nice that he gave like all that time to me to just not say anything about it and let me figure out what I believed. So I feel like I got lucky with that. I feel like I also got lucky that I was already with someone who was an atheist, and that wasn't planned. When I do talk about him being atheist, I'll inevitably have people being like, oh, well, now I know why you became atheist. But there's no way for me to describe that he literally had nothing to do with it, because he didn't ever try to convince me of it ever. So, but I'm not going to try and like tell, like I typically when people say that, I don't try and defend myself, but I see where that comes from, because that's a very like Christian thing of like, you can't date someone who's unequally yoked or they will drag you down, like type thing. So yeah, but I got lucky.
It's also really misogynistic. Like people tend to be like, oh, she changed her opinions because of the person she's dating. Like I see that so often. Even if it's true.
Absolutely.
It's always like people say it about Shoe on Head and characters like that, and it's like, you know, you don't think she just went down the rabbit hole on her own. I mean, come on.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and that way of thinking is kind of a part of some of the religious traditions, which is that, you know, you have to follow along with the guidance or advice of your, you know, nearest male relative or spouse or something like that. So it probably seems very natural within that context when people maybe who are saying that to you are themselves, you know, being led or spiritually guided by the man in their lives, and they assume that's what you're doing. But
I also had it was interesting because I also had like dated Christian men who were horrible people, and it gave me a perspective that I was with someone who was atheist and he was so kind and like just like the best person I'd ever met. I'm like, okay, well, something's off about what I've been told. You know?
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you did happen upon that situation. That sounds like that worked out really well.
Yeah, it did. I got lucky.
Yeah,
man.
Okay. Well, we do have a couple of more questions. They're coming in hot and heavy here at the end. So we'll grab a couple more if you've got time.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So someone else is asking, and I love this question, do you have a favorite subject that you like learning about since leaving religion? Like maybe something that you didn't learn in school or something like that?
Kind of like something I already mentioned, which is like museums now. I love going to museums. I love history. I'm not going to say I'm like a history buff or something, but I love when I travel, I don't even call them vacations. I call them trips, because like I'm gonna go see historical stuff. I'm gonna take the tours. Like we're on a strict plan, if you know what I mean. Like I went
Yes.
I went to Greece, and I went to I wanted to go to Athens like right away. That was my first stop. Like I wanted to see all of the historical stuff. I went to Rome, needed to see every single historical thing. I just, everywhere I go, I'm like, I want to know the historical stuff. Or like in Paris they have the catacombs. I thought that was really cool, the historical stuff. So that stuff is very interesting to me. And I feel like obviously I could see that stuff if I was Christian, but I feel like I can just experience it so much more open-minded, where I can just learn about something they believed or ways they thought, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Like not with all this like wall of judgment behind different belief systems or different cultures is really nice.
Yeah, no, I absolutely know what you mean. I remember going on a trip to Paris with a family member who is very religious, and we would go and visit these sites that have, you know, great historical significance for like the Enlightenment or the French Revolution. And the commentary that I would get with my family member would be all these things like, oh, well, and you can see here that they were building monuments to man instead of God all of a sudden.
Exactly. Yes,
Like,
that
I don't
exactly.
need that.
Exactly. It's so
Yeah.
it's so boring. Like in my mind it's so boring to, but it's funny because when I do go traveling, if part of that history is a giant church, beautiful church, you better believe I'm in that church.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's still to me like culture and art and history, and you know, but yeah, it's fun. I love it.
Yeah, it puts me in mind of like the fact that like people don't realize this, but the Middle Ages, the horrors of the Middle Ages, that was a form of theocracy. That was Christian law, like being legislated. And those giant churches are a product of that, you know? So if you're not checking out the churches, you're missing out on history, and you're missing out on a key factor of the enlightened West, as it were, you know? So,
and beautiful archecture.
And beautiful architecture, absolutely. I mean, hey, you know, I mean, all right.
All right, one more.
Do you see larger? Do you see like a greater meaning in your life without religion, or do you just not care?
Do I see I don't. I feel like probably like when I was a Christian, I thought there was like since I thought there was like an ultimate divine meaning, I guess that's bigger. But as an atheist, it feels like I'm satisfied. Like I don't know, I don't feel like I need that anymore. So
that's fair.
I also, after deconstructing, I think not existing anymore is way more appealing to me than like people burning in hell or worshiping God forever in heaven and stuff like that. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Just one day at a time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Life is hard enough without a greater meaning, I say, you know?
And there are some days where I'm like,
I mean, hey, it rained down here today, let me tell you, you know?
Yeah, and some days I'm just like playing a video game. I just care about the video game. Like, I don't know. I just like, I'm trying to live more in the moment, and instead of, you know, constantly thinking, what's the point? I just try to enjoy what's right in front of my face. So, yeah.
I love that.
As Nietzsche says, you know, like vital existence over spiritual pipe dreams, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for real, last question before we wrap up, what is your video game of choice at the moment? What are you playing?
Oh my gosh, I could talk about it for hours.
I know I know what it's gonna be. I've been watching your videos.
Pokopia, it has me in a chokehold because I love. Right before that, it was Pokemon Legends ZA. I put like 80 hours in that baby, but this one, it's bad. I've been staying up till like 4 a.m. like multiple nights a week. It's pretty bad. But I love it because I love cozy games and I also love Pokemon. So it's like a mixture between, and I love cute stuff. So it's like a mixture of everything I love. And I'm obsessed with it. I'm going to be playing it for years to come. So this might be my
It's like Animal Crossing with Pokemon, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I will say this is like, I'm almost on the opposite side of the spectrum, but I also love Red Dead Redemption. Like I've been playing through the second one. That one's not very chill and it stresses me out, but I love it. I love to be a pretend cowboy. It's fun.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm here for
Hell
it.
yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, now that we've got that sorted out, we'll talk more video games in the Hangout, y'all. And don't forget, if you're joining us live on YouTube and you want to stick around and continue the conversation, hop on over to Zoom after the show and join us for the Hangout. I just dropped the Zoom link.
That's the only place to talk about Pokemon with me and Taylor. So,
that's right.
Saying.
And I'll be there, but I may not have much to contribute. I played Pokemon Go when it first came out in Japan, so that was fun.
Whoa.
That's so cool. That's so fun.
That is pretty cool, Kara.
That's a flex.
That's a lot of fun.
It's okay, Kara. We all know you're cooler than me, so whatever.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but we'll be in the Hangout, so come join us there. And don't forget to check out Taylor on YouTube, TikTok, and sometimes Instagram. And don't forget to join us next week, same time, same channel. And hey, Daniel, what do we have coming up next week?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's
As I put you on the spot to consult the notes.
I know, right? Now, next we've got the kinky therapist herself, Jessica Pizzo. She's super special, awesome. You should come check out her her talk. And we've got Janice Boynton and Katie Saleda. It's going to be super special, awesome, and we're very excited. And for more information about RFR and to access our other resources, visit our website at recoveringfromreligion.org, where you can get in touch with a volunteer on our 24/7 helpline. Attend a support group, peruse our online resources, visit the blog, listen to the podcast, which you're watching right now, or get connected with a licensed mental health care professional. And also, special thanks to Nikki from across the pond. We love you. Thank you very much. From the atheist community of Austin's fan-run Discord server, who live streams our RfRx talks on the atheist community of Discord, the ACD. Follow us on social media. It does help. We're posting these things. We're on all the internets, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the cool ones. They're all in the description on YouTube. And also our, previous RfRx recordings can be found on our YouTube channel in the RfRx playlist. And, lastly, we just want you all to know that everyone at RFR is a volunteer. We've learned that personal healing can result from helping others to heal. If you're so inclined and in a position to do so, we would love for you to join our team. We need tech people, podcast hosts, producers, people to man the helpline. So if you've got the time and you've got them guts, fill out the form on our main page. It's www.recoveringfromreligion.org/volunteer. And speaking of volunteers, check out our new playlist on the Recovering from Religion YouTube channel, RFR Deconstruction Stories. Each of the now 14 episodes features an interview with a volunteer sharing the story of their own deconstruction journey. Episodes include some folks RFRX viewers may be familiar with, including Glenda, myself, Gail, and none other than our own Dr. Kara Griffin. I've heard of that person.
Yeah, they're here sometimes.
Yeah, they're a cool cat. And don't forget to check out all the fantastic programming from the RFR Australia playlists, RFR Stories Australia and Unshackled. And Kara, what time is it now?
It's time for the benediction from Dr. Daryl Ray. Daryl, welcome back to the show. What do you have for us? I know you promised lots of thoughts on this topic and maybe even some cool stories and things. What do you have to share with us? And can you hear us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Well, I wasn't sure if I lost you all of a sudden. Taylor, this was awesome. We've had 2 back-to-back weeks discussing this kind of subject. That's my favorite subject, Taylor.
Oh, good. I had fun.
I'm going to put a tip in. I don't know who are people that are taking clips out for the social media, but that discussion on nihilism is like the fucking best. We should put that out there. That's a really cool. Taylor, you hit the nail on the head. I thought it was a perfect, about as perfect as you can get understanding it. So thank you. That's a good thing. And you're only an hour from DC.
Yeah.
Gail and I were just there this last weekend for for 3 days, and we always come out there on this time of year for the
Oh, really?
Secular Coalition. We always try to meet cool people while we're there. We met a few RFR volunteers while we were there, but wow,
Oh,
would have been cool
cool.
to meet you as well.
Yeah,
I
I feel like I
promised.
need to go to those events. I'm bad at knowing when they're around.
Well, this wouldn't be an event you'd want to go to. It's just for the leaders of the various organizations.
Oh, okay.
But what we do is we spend an evening hobnobbing, drinking in the pub, and interacting with
That's
volunteers if
amazing.
we're in the DC area. We'll try and catch you next year. We
Yeah.
always have a great time there. And I promised you I was going to give you my guinea pig story before we started. And this is a guinea pig atheist story, by the way. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. I had 2 or 3 guinea pigs, but my favorite was Squeaky. He was the most cuddly guy in the whole world. He would get under your neck, just knock you, and say, "You got to cuddle me, you got to cuddle me," and all the time he'd just be squeak, 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 squeak. It was just, he just the coolest. He was coolest guinea pig. But one day I went out to get him, and he was dead. I mean, just like no sign that he was sick or anything. He was just dead.
Aw.
And it just upset me big time. And I was crying. And I came in with my dead guinea pig and showed him to my mom. And I said, "Mom, what happens when the guinea pigs go to heaven?" And she said, "No, only people go to heaven." And
No.
that was my first step to atheism, because I knew she was wrong. My guinea pig was gonna go to heaven.
I do not blame you. That is devastating news to get, honestly.
Yeah, my mom didn't have the right theology there.
One
Anyway,
step
that was
closer to the
my.
pit.
But it really was probably in my whole life, that probably was the first step of true skepticism I remember
Yeah.
having around the things I had been
Yeah.
taught.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I want to say something. I said this last week too, Kara, but this notion of grieving your losses, is a real phenomenon, as you guys have clearly demonstrated. But what I like to throw in is that grieving is associated with our attachment systems in our brain. And so when you are religious and someone dies, your attachment system is not disconnected, so to speak. You don't unplug that
Right.
attachment, because you still think, "Oh, I'll see grandma in heaven." So you never go through the grief and the detachment, because nobody talks about detachment.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about attachment, when we're talking about attachment and all that kind of stuff that's in pop psychology, attachment styles, which is actually kind of bullshit. But I won't give you my opinion on that yet. But the detachment is what we feel. We call it grief, and I mean, I'm not against the word grief. I'm just trying to explain what we as humans go through, and we go through the process of detaching. And religion doesn't allow that to happen efficiently.
Yeah.
With us, with people that don't have that issue in our lives, we can steadily realize we're not going to see grandma again. We're not going to see, whoever. I'm not going to see my guinea pig, and
Yeah.
I don't have to have a double grief. And I think you use that word, double grief, and I think that's a good way to understand
Yeah.
it for people that are leaving religion.
Yeah, I
And
always felt like religion did put a Band-Aid on grief, where it
yes,
wasn't
yeah,
like you were fully accepting of like the grief in general, is how it felt to me. Yeah.
yeah. And there's one other way to look at it, and that is what I term compound grief. That's a different component. What I mean by that is, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you leave the witnesses and you get shunned by your whole family, you grieve the loss of those people,
Yeah.
but they're still alive,
Yeah.
and you could see them in the grocery store. So I call that compound grief, because it's compounded, because you can't really completely disconnect. The
Yeah.
attachment's still there. So I think these words, I mean, we're just talking kind of theoretical here, but these words are important as we go through our journeys and helping us understand why we feel these things, why we have this deep attachment or detachment or double grief or compound grief. You know, all these words help describe what we're going through.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
that's all I got. Thanks again, Taylor. And Kara, back to you.
Thanks, Dr. Ray, and
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you.
Daniel and Taylor. This was a great episode,
Kara,
and
I
I
can't hear
can't
you.
wait to.
I can
Oh,
hear her.
Am
We
I
can hear
not
them.
audible?
I can
Okay.
hear you.
Awesome. All right. Well,
We
then
can't hear
on
you.
that
I
note,
can't. Can you hear?
I can hear them.
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yep.
Okay, then I'm going to
We're
get
good.
off here. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Be gone.
and we'll all go to the hangout. How about that? If you are still here and you want to keep hanging out with us, head on over to the after show hangout in Zoom. The link is in the chat. And with that, that wraps up this episode of RfRx, your weekly reminder that recovery is a journey best shared. We'll see you next time, same channel, same prescription.
Thanks for watching. Love you
Bye.
guys.